I've registered as an Arizona independent. I know some people might be a little bit surprised by this, but actually, I think it makes a lot of sense. A growing number of Arizonans and people like me just don't feel like we fit neatly into one party's box or the other. And so, like many across the state and the nation, I've decided to leave.
So Kyrsten Sinema, who was of course elected as a Democrat and has since then stymied Biden's agenda as much as humanly possible, announcing there that she is becoming an independent. Now, we can't forget that it's likely that she was going to be facing a primary on the Democratic side, so she now sort of sidesteps that, although she's setting up for potentially a complicated situation for that race that I'm sure we'll talk about. She was on there being interviewed by Jake Tapper though, and Jake Tapper is, in my view, to media what she is to the Democratic Party, and so you can probably, what's that?
I said here, that's such a great point.
Thank you. You could probably expect the sorts of questions, the way he framed questions to her. We're gonna give you a little mashup right here.
How does leaving the party change how you do your job?
Well, I don't think anything will change about how I do my job. Arizonans sent me to the United States Senate to be an independent voice for our state, and I'll continue doing that. What I think is important about this decision and this move is that I'll be able to show up to work every day as an independent and not be, stuck into one party's demands of following without thinking.
Let's talk about practically what this means, because you're the chair of at least 2 subcommittees. You're a member of a number of important committees, including Veterans Affairs. Does this mean that you're no longer going to be in those positions because you're no longer a Democrat and the Democrats control the Senate?
Well, I intend to maintain my position on my committees and keep doing the work that I've been doing for Arizona. So I don't think that things will change in terms of how I operate or the work that I do in the United States Senate.
The balance of power right now is 51 Democrats, or 51 votes for the Democratic Party. That includes 2 independents, Angus King of Maine and Bernie Sanders of Vermont. But that's 51-49. What you're doing today doesn't change that. It's still basically going to be 51-49.
Well, I know you have to ask that question, Jake.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a DC thing to worry about. What I'm really focused on is just making sure that I'm doing what I think comports with my values and the values of Arizonans.
Her values. She wants to comport with her values and the values of Arizonans. Well, to be fair, some wealthy financiers do live in Arizona, I suppose. Okay, so there she is explaining her thought process, and maybe we'll have some disagreement on the panel. I think every word of it is transparent BS. I don't even think she cares that it's clearly BS. You can read that in her facial expressions. She's smug, she's confident that whether the voters of Arizona despise everything coming out of her mouth or not, there's nothing they can do about it. They're stuck with her for at least a couple of years and maybe even longer than that. She does say there that this changes nothing about the way she'll do her job. She would still very much like her committee positions, by the way. She's stopped the Democrats from accomplishing many of their goals, and she's probably gonna continue to do that, but she'd love the seniority, that would be nice. So if it doesn't change that, and she's still gonna just go in and do her job. The only thing she implied that it would change is that she would no longer feel pressure to comply with everything the Democratic Party wants. As if she has ever seemed to feel that pressure in the past. So maybe I'm wrong. Everything that she said there about why she needed to do this suspiciously close to the end of the runoff coming from the midterm elections doesn't make any sense. That forces on me a need to figure out what the actual motivation is, but maybe we can debate that.
Oh, for sure. So look, I think this story is really important on a couple of counts, but maybe not the count that you're expecting. So it's important because it shows you exactly how politics works. We love dissecting it. It's gonna give us a CSI moment here where we get to show you the crime scene, right? And there is one thing that's very important about what she did and did not do. I'm gonna get to that in a second, and you need to hear that, okay? So, but first I wanna start with her saying, look, I know a lot of people are surprised. Yeah, maybe idiots, and so, or people who don't follow the news. And those are 2 completely different categories, right? You're a dentist, you don't follow the news, you're like, oh, it turns out my senator wasn't a Democrat. I didn't know that, right, in Arizona. It's perfectly fine, right? But if you're following the news and you're really surprised that Sinema has left the Democratic Party to become an independent, like, then you don't know anything about politics. You should just retire today. Hand in your notice and move out, do something you're good at. Okay, so of course, like this is the least surprising move I have ever seen in my life. Okay, so what is infuriating is how the media aids and abets her theater. I mean, that's a performance, and it wasn't even a good performance, right? Jake, I've always been an independent in the way that I think. Okay, oh really? Tell me more about how independent and moderate you are. Because those two words are so positive, as opposed to what you actually are, which is pro-corporate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's the theater that they set up for you. The entire play is an illusion. So CNN article, to go along with that nonsense interview, explains how she's always had an independent streak. She's never fully bought into the Democratic Party. Earlier in her career, she was part of the Green Party. Well, hold on. Does anyone at CNN know anything about politics? The Green Party is to the left of the Democrats. She's now going as an independent to the right of the Democrats. That means she is not consistent. That means she has switched her positions completely on policy. But what do? They don't tell you that she switched because then she would look like a fraud, right? In terms of her policies. Oh, I changed all my positions within a couple of years once the donor money started flowing in. Doesn't sound that good. So instead she gets fluffery, right? Well, brave, independent, moderate, always thinking for herself. Look at Kyrsten Sinema, amazing. Wow, what a revelatory move, right? Instead of saying what the reality is, she was funneling donor money like this. Okay, and she was getting it from Republican donors, Democratic donors, etc. But she miscalculated, and normally you play that game and the press covers for you, and then you stay a Democrat and you betray your voters over and over and over again. That's the normal playbook. She overdid it in how spectacularly she betrayed the Democratic agenda here. So she was gonna lose in a primary, guaranteed. That's why she moved to independent to try the Murkowski route. That's a route that Lisa Murkowski tried in Alaska. That's the actual story, instead of this garbage that you're seeing that has no relationship to the truth. Francesca.
Yeah, and it's also a way to keep the focus on her, right? It's like, how can she still be the headline now that it seems like Democrats are all pulling in the right direction or in the same direction? And honestly, let's be real, like the re-election of Raphael Warnock was effectively to render either Manchin or Sinema, neutralize them in these critical votes, as she and Manchin have undermined the president's agenda very, again, like the most basic agenda around basic, civil rights, around healthcare, around minimum wage, around like you name it, around the climate. And so she's like, no, you can't count on me. I'm mysterious. I'm independent. I'm different now. Look, I've got no sleeves. Wow, and just like again, like she is. Incredibly narcissistic, and that's just one of the many things. And I think it speaks to the corruption of the Senate inherently. We know the Senate is not a representative body, and here you have Kyrsten Sinema proving that. How do you ping pong from the Green Party all the way to just being a funnel, again, for corporate money? It's because you're unaccountable to your voters. And I said it this morning on the damage report, but like you can't, the Democratic Party of Arizona, they kicked you out months ago. They gave you a vote of no confidence months ago. So okay, now you're leaving, great honey, like you've been gone.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.